Summer is here, and traveling is an activity that many people enjoy and would want to experience, especially with friends and loved ones. Booking via travel agencies is one of the most convenient ways people do to reach their dream destinations. But there are some people who take advantage of this, just like in the case of Hannah.
This is about the Metro deal na naloko nga kami. Ganun. We purchased the vouchers for Puerto Princesa, Palawan last June 2011. And according to the deal, the validity of the voucher is for 1 year. So supposedly, it'll end June 2012. Syempre, we took our time, we planned the trip, and then we decided to book December 2011. When I called the travel agency, we couldn't reach them na. My friend decided to go to the physical office in Enterprise. And then when she finally got to talk to a representative of Metroville, parang ang sinabi, we will refund the money around 90 to 120 days. But then, siya na rin nagsabi, yung representative, na parang impossible kasi madami pa din yung nagreklamo, madami silang kailangan i-refund, and marami nang nauna sa amin. 5 vouchers worth 10,000 each kasi we're planning to go na 10 kami, we will share 1 voucher. So 5,000 each siya. Pero until now, wala pa din word from Metro Deal and wala pa din kahit email man or text.
What are the laws that protect consumers from fraudulent travel agencies? What are the penalties for dishonest travel agencies? What should consumers or customers look out for before dealing with travel agencies in general? Good evening, I am Attorney Karen Jimeno and you are watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you.
And I'm Attorney Nepomuceno. Tonight, we will be discussing your legal rights on the issue of consumer rights with regard to travel agencies. What you need to know before making a transaction with a travel agency, and what you need to do should you experience any scrupulous acts by them. We'll be discussing this issue with someone from the Department of Tourism who has knowledge on this subject.
Our guest for tonight is Assistant Secretary Benito Bengzon Jr. Good evening, sir. Secretary, thank you for being here today.
Good evening, Attorney Karen.
Good evening,
Attorney Rod.
Good evening. Good evening. All
It's
right.
a very interesting topic,
yes.
especially since summer is here. A lot of people are traveling.
And I get a lot of emails. I get a lot of emails from these so-called websites inviting me for
packages.
vouchers.
Actually, when I was watching our case study today, yun yung naisip ko bigla. Kasi dati na-tempt ako, sabi ko, ang mura nito ah.
Yeah.
But then nung pinapanood ko naman siya, sabi ko, buti na lang pala hindi. Because sometimes you feel like you're getting a good deal pag nakita mo yung mga ganyang packages and then mas expensive sa travel agencies. But travel agencies, they're usually tried and tested, no? So, Mr. Bengzon, any guidelines on what we should look out for in order to avoid cases like our case study today? Na in her case, meron ba siyang recourse?
Well, let me start by giving the single most important tip for travelers. They have to go to the accredited travel agents and tour operators.
Okay, how do they know if they're accredited? Should they look for a certain seal?
There should be a
sign?
seal. There should be a seal saying that this establishment is accredited by the DOT.
Okay, they fake that? Can these so-called travel agencies just put a seal?
Right.
You know?
If it's online, how do you know if
Well,
it's real?
you can double check that because the list is in the DOT website.
There you go.
Okay. So if you look at any deals online, if you look at the provider, then you can also double check with the DOT website and see if they're listed with the DOT.
Precisely.
Now, and it's because you, the Department of Tourism, you oversee all of these promos. Do you check all of these promos that the accredited agencies offer?
Well, we monitor all the
yeah,
packages that are offered by the accredited establishments.
All right.
We make sure that everything is above board. We make sure that there are no hidden costs, for example. And we have to make sure that whatever is stated in the package is actually delivered to the consumer.
It's still, this is still under the Consumer Act, the general provisions of the Consumer Act? No?
Well, if you look at the Consumer Act, there's no provision that specifically pertains to travel and tourism. What governs our operations would be the Tourism Act of 2009. And one of the provisions in the Tourism Act is to actually mandate primary tourism establishments to have themselves accredited with the DOT. So when you talk about primary tourism establishments, you're talking about the hotels, the resorts, other types of accommodation facilities like inns, and you have the travel agencies and the tour operators.
Okay. So in this case, since apparently they were complaining with the online provider, yung mga nagpo-provide ng mga promos and they're not the actual provider of the tour package that was not honored. So in this case, kung hindi sila maka-refund dun sa online website where they bought the package from, can they report this tourism provider, this tourist package provider to the DOT?
They can. If the provider is accredited with the DOT, then we give that particular company 1 week to explain as to why there was a complaint to begin with. If the company is not accredited by the DOT, then we have to refer the complaint to the concerned local government unit.
Do you have the power though to close down?
No, we don't.
Travel agency?
No, we
Okay.
don't.
All right.
We don't have any police powers to close down any of the establishments.
But of course,
Okay.
the penalty being non-accredited by the DOT, that carries kind of a harsh punishment for them, no? Because then they can participate in your programs.
It
Right?
does from a marketing and promotion standpoint, because what it means if you're an accredited entity by the DOT is that you're included in all our marketing and promotions activities. If there are groups that are looking for certain types of facilities or services, then we can endorse to the accredited establishments. So once you are dropped from the list, then that means you can no longer join us in our trade fairs, in our international exhibitions, in our sales missions,
Okay.
and that will impact on your
On
profit.
sales,
On
yes.
sales.
yeah.
It's really important. We have a question from a viewer, from Marco, and he asks, a lot of travel agencies partner with online shopping websites, and many of them are not legit agencies. Can these websites also be held liable for the fraudulent acts of these agencies? Shouldn't they first verify the legitimacy of the agencies before placing their offers online? Ito yung parang nangyari sa complainant natin kanina, di ba?
Yeah, the websites were offering.
Yeah, exactly. The website was offering it, and then when they were going to redeem it, mukhang hindi na nag-exist yung travel agency. But again, Secretary, maybe this is something you can explain to
Well,
us.
right now the DOT does not accredit
Website.
the so-called online travel agents or the OTAs. But we're looking at it very carefully because we see a shift in the booking patterns of the consumers. Many years back, the only option practically was to do over-the-counter transactions, meaning you have to go to your favorite travel agent and then ask for the best deal for a 4-day, 3-night stay in this city or that country. But right now, what we're seeing is that many of these consumers are going to the website and trying to do basically two things. One is to access the information, and then second is to book directly.
Right. I guess because of the practicality of being online, and they see all of these nice little numbers of 75% off and 80% off.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that can be quite
So
enticing.
what are the red flags, the usual red flags that they should be worried about? Or basically your tip is just go to a travel agency rather than booking
Accredited.
online.
Accredited.
Yeah.
Accredited,
I think, but when you say accredited, since they don't accredit online,
No.
those online sellers, but you still accredit basically travel agents that advertise online or sell
That's right.
online, pa
That's
rin,
right.
right?
That's
So
right.
the
So
accreditation
just
is important.
That's
Just look
right.
for it. You
Right.
can
But
still do it online.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we are reviewing it, as I mentioned.
Okay, that should be good news for a lot of the online buyers, no?
So anyway, we have another question. Leo is asking us, some travel agencies offer tour packages that sound too good to be true. Oh, I know that. But many times don't deliver what they advertise. Can this be considered a violation of the Consumer Act?
Well, absolutely.
Promising, no?
I'll cite a very common example among, let's say, the Japanese travelers. When a Japanese traveler, let's say, books in a resort, let's say in the Visayas or in Mindanao, and if he indicates, let's say, ocean view as his preference, when he gets to the resort, you better make sure that he gets ocean view. We've had several cases wherein it's just maybe half of the view of half of the ocean or partly the farm or the
Yes.
coconut trees,
Yeah.
and we've had complaints.
Okay. And those complaints, how do you address them? Kunwari, you receive one of those, what can consumers expect the DOT can do for them?
Well, we can, like I said, we can talk to the tour operator and ask them to explain.
Okay, and can they get a refund
Yes,
or a
yes,
discount?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
that's very
More often
helpful.
than not, is that refund enforced by you or because of the fear of the travel agency or the tour operator to be, I guess, disaccredited by the DOT? That's what prompts them to give the
More
refund.
of the latter, I think.
More of the latter. It's not that you have
Which is a good point, Rod. Kasi from a legal perspective, if you're just looking at the law, what the consumers can do is actually to file a case in court, which they have grounds for under the law, diba? Because that's a breach of contract in case you don't get what you paid for. But then it takes such a long time to court.
does.
So I think the DOT is the best
Yes.
government agency to go to in these cases, no? Let's take a short break. Legal Help Desk will return after these reminders. You're still watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel. We are still joined by our guest, Assistant Secretary Benito Bengzon Jr. of the Department of Tourism.
Yeah, okay. Let's answer a few more questions from our viewers with our guest. Oscar is asking, what other acts by travel agencies can be considered as violations of the Consumer Act? Siguro we should also clarify what in travel agency and, as you mentioned, tour operator. There's a difference between the two, right?
But basically, when you talk about travel agents, these are the ones handling outbound.
Outbound, okay.
When you talk about tour operators, these are the ones handling inbound travel.
Inbound
Meaning pag
or local.
outbound, yung mga...
You're going abroad.
Abroad, okay.
And
Pag
tour
sinabing
operators
tour-
are the ones local. For
Yeah,
local
they make
travel.
the local arrangements. If you're doing, let's say, a Cebu package or a Bohol package or Davao, they're the ones who are putting together the different components, meaning the transfers, the hotels, the city tour, and yung shopping.
So to answer Oscar's
options.
question, what violations can these tour
Or what,
operators?
or what normally do you get complaints
what complaints?
of na violations ng mga tour operators?
Well, there are several cases. No, one is the issue of validity. Okay. Second would be in terms.
Validity meaning minsan hindi
You-
nila ino-honor.
Yeah, you book a special package and then later on you found out that it's only good until a certain date. Second, and I think this is one of the more common ones, is pricing. You know, for example, you pay 5,000 and it turns out that there are hidden
fees.
costs. Okay, it jacks it up to 6,000, 7,000.
Yeah.
Right.
The third one is in terms of the deliverables. You book, let's say, an ocean view villa and then you're given a coconut plantation view.
Yes. And what if about yung mga inclusive na, kunwari, nakalagay doon, may kasamang tour, tapos naka-detail yung tour, yung pala, dadalhin ka lang sa certain locations, tapos kulang-kulang basically. Kunwari, di ba madalas, when you look at tours, meron 5 destinations. Tapos, when you get there, 3 lang, or may mga hindi naman dinaanan. In those
asking
cases,
for a high-end car,
oo,
pero
or yung iba naman, ang hate na hate ko, yung idadaan kayo dun sa mga kunwari sasabihin, manufacturer of blah, 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 para mabentahan ka. Does the DOT have a hotline na while you're still on vacation, pwede mo na ireklamo yung tour provider or yung
Well,
travel agent?
we have an office that accredits and regulates the operations of these establishments. It's called the Office of Tourism Standards. So you can just go to the website and then check the contact details.
Ah, great.
But you know, just to respond to what you mentioned, when you talk about, let's say, 5 destinations being included, and it turns out you're only taken to 3 destinations,
Yes.
that is very, that's a very clear violation, or
Right.
you know, you're being shortchanged.
Right.
In other words.
No, there's these websites, diba? We know them. These are the e-voucher websites, right? And they're kind of different from the other travel agency websites, but these are like they provide vouchers, so to speak, if you do a particular thing. Do you cover those?
No, we
those.
don't.
Those.
We don't.
All right. Okay. So normally the courts would be your
Yes.
your best remedy, no?
Yes.
Secretary Bengzon, yung pagka naman as I've mentioned, dinadala kayo sa mga certain destinations, kunwari, as part of a tour, na mukhang gusto lang kayo bentahan ng mga, di ba, sasabihin nila, weaving factory. Pagdating nyo doon, this is not very touristy, pero nagbebenta lang ng wares. Is that a violation of any standards of the Department of Tourism or any regulation?
Right now, it's not. It's like when you go abroad, you're brought to a jade factory.
Yes.
So I think what the check and balance here is that if you get enough feedback, let's say from the consumers or the travelers, that maybe this component of the package tour is not working, then hopefully we can convince or compel the ground handler to change the itinerary or the components of the program.
All right. Now, in terms of the procedure, no, what type of complaint? Do you have a form? Do they need a lawyer to go to the DOT to file a complaint, or they just walk into your office and do a verbal complaint? What do you have a certain steps that they need to follow in the DOT?
We make it very easy for the complainant. Simple letter will do. A verbal complaint will do. No lawyers needed.
No lawyers needed. Again, just like in our show last week, diba?
We try to simplify it. The thing is, part of our thrust to be competitive is we want to make it easier for the tourists, to move around, and if there are complaints, for us to immediately address those problems.
All right, thank you. Well, Mateo is asking us, what penalties can these agencies expect if found guilty of cheating customers? Can the people still get their money back from them? So we were talking about that earlier. No, basically, in your case, it's accreditation. They lose their accreditation, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's and as they lose, and no travel agency wants to lose their accreditation.
I don't think so, because like I said, it will impact on their their sales.
Yeah, and I guess tour operators from abroad who would like to bring, let's say, 50 or 100 Japanese here, they'd only be working with accredited travel agencies.
That's correct.
Right? Okay. But with respect to damages, though, that's not within the purview of the DOT. No?
Secretary Bengson, I also have a question. Yung tungkol naman sa fine print, pagka merong iba na hindi nila napapansin, that's why I guess minsan nag-expire yung voucher, or as you've said, yung mga hidden charges, because nakalagay sa very, very fine print na this does not include fees for blah, 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 or costs for this. To what extent is that binding on the consumer? Na kasi iba i-argue nila, well, it's there, nakalagay naman sa voucher, you should have read it. But the Department of Tourism, what is your stand on this as a business practice of travel agents?
Well, our thinking is that we have to make the Philippines very competitive. And we don't want all these little problems to get in the way. Of course, there are some who will say, oh, buyer beware, so make sure that you look at the fine print. What we want is a situation wherein the consumer is well informed. We also want a situation wherein the supplier is able to operate profitably. And I think the perfect example here would be the recently passed Passenger Bill of Rights, where now all the airlines have to disclose all the fees that are included in the package. So on one side, we want the consumer to get a fair deal. On the other side, of course, we want to make sure that the airlines continue to operate.
Now, we've been talking about travel agencies, but let's say I book online on the website of the airline, and I have an issue there. Do you credit airlines as well? You don't really credit airlines.
Civil aeronautics.
More CAB na.
There's a different government agency.
All right. So if it's in other words, if you book the flight directly on the website of the airline, it's the CAB that you probably go to, not the DOT. So it's only for travel agencies. So we have to clear that. Yeah.
Okay, we only have a few minutes left in the show. Let's use this remaining time to give a recap of what we've discussed so far. So, one, yung mga complaints. So I guess what an important thing we've learned would be try to look for accredited travel agencies.
That's tip number one.
Oo.
Yeah.
Lalo na if you're buying online, as you've seen from our case study, ang hirap maghabol, no?
Yeah.
Lalo na, Secretary Bengson was saying kanina, the thing is, pagka hindi accredited sa kanila, it's also hard for them to chase these agents.
You have to go to the LGU.
Travel agencies, because you can't find them. But also for the benefit of our viewers, if you're shortchanged, meaning pag hindi sinunod yung nakalagay sa travel package, no, basically under the law, you can file a case for damages or breach of contract with the courts. But then this entails hiring a lawyer, filing a complaint, going to court. So one of the
Quicker.
more, yes,
more expedient way.
convenient remedies would be to go to the Department of Tourism. But again, it helps that you go to or deal with an accredited travel agency so that they can really address the situation. And Secretary Bengzon, any last-minute tips to our traveling viewers?
Well, the only tip I can give is that if you plan to book a tour, if you plan to travel, make sure that you go to an accredited travel agency or an accredited tour operator.
Yeah, that's an important tip right there.
Know, yes. And do you have a hotline, by the way, for those who have to file complaints or who have concerns?
Well, you can just go to the website of the DOT. It's tourism.gov.ph. And then we have also an office called Office of Tourism Standards that handles the accreditation of all these tourism establishments. So for any complaints, just go to that office.
That's great to know.
All right. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for tonight. I would like to thank our guest, Assistant Secretary Benito Bengzon Jr. of the Department of Tourism for being with us tonight. I'm Atty. Nepomuceno.
And I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. Join us again next Monday as we talk about your legal rights with regard to the issue of consumer rights on online shopping here on Legal Help Desk. Good night.
We purchased the vouchers for Puerto Princesa, Palawan last June 2011. And according to the deal, the validity of the voucher is for 1 year. So supposedly, it'll end June 2012. Siyempre, we took our time, we planned the trip, and then we decided to book December 2011. When I called the travel agency, we couldn't reach them na. My friend decided go na 10 kami, we will share one voucher. So 5,000 each siya. Pero until now, wala pa din word from Metro Deal and wala pa din kahit email man or text.
What are the laws that protect consumers from fraudulent travel agencies? What are the penalties for dishonest travel agencies? What should consumers or customers look out for before
To go to the physical office in Enterprise. And then when she finally got to talk to a representative of Metroville, parang ang sinabi, we will refund the money around 90 to 120 days. But then, siya na rin nagsabi, yung representative, na parang impossible kasi madami pa din yung nagreklamo, madami silang kailangan i-refund, and marami nang nauna sa amin. 5 vouchers worth 10,000 each kasi we're planning.
Summer is here and traveling is an activity that many people enjoy and would want to experience, especially with friends and loved ones. Booking via travel agencies is one of the most convenient ways people do to reach your dream destinations. But there are some people who take advantage of this, just like in the case of Hannah.
This is about the Metro Deal na naloko nga kami.